Mr. James McDonald. He is actually the director of ballooning and one of the organisers of the event, who's the first one away. We hope to have a few more balloons for you flying fairly shortly. The wind this morning is a little brisk, is how I describe it. Relatively calm on the ground. And of course, as soon as we get up to a little bit of altitude, the wind is going faster. Heading towards the southwest, down towards Evesham. And hopefully we will see a few more balloons inflating very soon. I think there's one or two getting ready to go over on the left-hand side of the field. And the reason why they're over there is because there is some shelter from the wind behind that small clump of trees. We have had a fantastic weekend here at Midlands Air Festival, and we are very happy that you are here to join us on the last day. If you're here for the day, find yourself a pitch, get settled down. There is some refreshments, tea and coffee, breakfast available if you go and check out the concession stands. The guys will look after you, make sure you get a suitable amount of caffeine. And also, if you're going to be here for the day, make sure you've got plenty of fluids and some sun cream, because we had a lovely sunny day here yesterday. It got quite warm. We had to make sure people were, if you had a hat, making sure you're wearing a hat and making sure you've got your factor 30 sun cream. So our second balloon is away. This is one of our competition gurus, Mr. Richard Parry. And the balloon he's flying, you'll notice, is a slightly different shape to the one that James just took off in. This is what we call a racer. These are slightly different because they are designed to be able to climb and descend much faster than a normal balloon. Because when you're flying in competition, you need to be able to dive down onto the target, because a balloon race is not a race of speed, it's a race of accuracy. And the pilots will be given a target to fly to, and he's doing a really nice job of doing a nice low pass across the field. And you can see there the speed that he is going. That is entirely down to the wind. A balloon is a non-steerable aircraft. The pilot has two controls, going up or going down.
Welsh flag.
And you use the different directions of wind at different altitudes to take you in the direction that you wish to go.
There you go, Welshie.
So the pilot, if he wants to go up, he turns on the burners, he heats the air inside the balloon, which will make it rise. And if he wants to go down, there is a valve in the top of the balloon, a large hole, which is filled with a plug, effectively, which is in the shape of a parachute. It's not actually a parachute, you don't want to jump out with it. But the air pressure inside the balloon forces that plug closed, and the pilot can pull a rope and release hot air from the top of the balloon, which will allow him to come down. And by controlling his height and his altitude, he'll be able to pick up different wind directions and different wind speeds, then guide his balloon in the direction that he wishes to go. But that direction will always be downwind. We are unable to fly into the wind. If you want to do that, you put an engine on the back of it, and it's called an airship. We have one of our special shaped balloons inflating as well, Slick the Dragon. It's good conditions, it's nice and cold here on the ground. And the reason for that being good in his name, and that's where we will be displaying some of the vintage balloons that we have here this weekend. We have 171 of the round balloons, 35 special shapes. This is the premier balloon festival in the UK now. And of course, it's absolutely ideal here in the wonderful grounds of Ragley Hall.
Safe journey.
So there goes our first special shape, Slick the Dragon.
Oh, it's the square one. Square ones off.
Now, for your information, the structure, the way that the balloon is built to make that special shape, technically inside that box, inside the balloon, is all the same structure of a normal balloon. It's just that you don't have the fabric there, the material is not there, but you do have all of the structural load tapes. And then from there are a series of baffles that then come out from those that hold together the outer shape to make sure it stays in that wonderful shape. It's actually a pallet with a box and Slick the Dragon. Getting cameras out, get your phones out, because he's now, quite rarely, what they normally do, the special shapes fly the opposite way, but he's actually flying and looking back at you. You can wave to the pilot, you can say hi to them, because in actual fact, one of the interesting things about balloons, if we're flying at 500 feet, we can hear everything that's going on the ground. You can hear people talking, and more importantly, you can hear dogs barking. There's a wonderful phrase made by the late Malcolm Forbes, who was a very keen balloonist. He goes, "Little frog," which is, balloons serve no useful purpose apart from making people smile.
Oh, I like the way his tail spirals.
The reason that is the burners make a very high-pitched sound.
His tail spirals underneath.
We can't hear.
Oh, look at the
Animals
frog.
can. So we're very aware of that if we're flying over any animals, any livestock. We have two different kinds of burner on the balloon. One that actually makes less noise, makes a brighter orange flame. We call it the cow burner for flying over cattle, but in fact it's called a whisper burner, which is there so that we don't disturb any animals on the ground. So Hannah is making a low pass.
Oh, Froggy. Whoa, he's off.
One of our regular pilots, the Champagne Passager. This is Mr. Peter Dolby from Bristol. Pete's a long-time balloonist. He used to fly the IKEA balloon, which is one of the special shapes.
You were seeing if you saw that on its own from out the sky.
And was more famous for flying Bertie Bassett, the Bassett's licorice all salt balloon for many years. And he was recently involved in an interesting project for Red Bull, where they had a very large balloon and they built a BMX park underneath the balloon and flew it over Bristol with a guy doing BMX tricks at 5,000 feet.
Template
You
again.
go on YouTube, you'll find it. It's a very interesting one. He was the pilot of the balloon on that day. Now, champagne is an interesting thing. Everyone associates going for a balloon flight with having champagne. And there is a history behind that. Ballooning was invented in France. Two paper merchants in the town of Annonay, in Provence region, Jacques and Etienne Montgolfier. And one evening, Etienne is burning some paper in the fire, and his wife had put her blouse in front of the fire to dry. And the hot air got inside the blouse and inflated it. And he thought, well, there's something doing that. So he built a little balloon shape out of some paper, put some heat inside it, and sure enough it flew up the chimney. And he thought, oh, something is giving it lift. He built a slightly larger balloon out of silk and paper, test inflated that, and again it flew away. Now he thought it was the smoke that was doing it, but in actual fact the smoke from the paper was sealing the fabric and stopping the air from getting out and allowing the heat to give it lift. A little like the polyurethane coating we have on the balloons today. Now this came to the attention of the King of France, Louis XIV. who then sent a message to the Montgolfier brothers saying, your balloon sounds very interesting, please bring it to Paris and show me how it works. So they built a slightly larger balloon, they took it up to Paris, and in the Palace of Versailles, they inflated the balloon for the king, but they didn't want to put anyone in it, it wasn't big enough, so they put a rooster, a duck, and a lamb in a basket, and they let them fly away. And sure enough, they landed perfectly safely, they were happy, they survived, and they said, this is now potentially safe, can we build a balloon that is big enough for a person to fly in? So in November 1783, they built a slightly larger balloon, and they took it to Paris again, but they were worried that perhaps it was going to be dangerous, and they decided that maybe it would be better if it was flown by 2 convicted criminals. Our art balloon is in the air. That's a lovely looking balloon. This is actually a flying work of art. As I said, I will speak to Linda Cross-Mead a little later on, and we'll find out a little bit of the history of that one. That's actually very interesting.
That one's interesting.
So instead of just being made up of normal panels of fabric, it has been created as a flying painting. We'll find out a little bit about that. So wave at them, and you can say hello, they can hear you.
Doesn't look like she's got much room.
Again, a lightweight basket.
Or he. I'm not sure.
Tanks on the outside. So hopefully they're going to try and stay in the park. We might actually see a landing as well as a launch. You get an idea about what it's like to try and land one of these
There's
things.
3 people in that
That's the
one.
reason why we don't fly in fast winds, because if you're coming into land, you're going at the speed of the wind, and it looks like we might get to see a controlled crash, as we call it. There you go, that's what a balloon landing is like. And the balloon then is continuing to go as they're trying to release the air from the top of it, and it will drag the basket along. If there's no wind, then the balloon will stand upright. But that is a perfectly safe balloon landing. Excellent display of how to land a hot air balloon. And as you see the air being released from it, from the top of the balloon, and eventually enough air will come out that it will stop dragging. The retrieve crew will then, in their vehicle, go and collect them, pack the balloon up, and then you can go back to where you started from. So you're lucky this morning, we've actually seen takeoff and landing. You normally don't see the landing, because the balloon flight is always this romantic thing. You know where you're going to take off, but you never know where you're going to land. And it's the pilot's job to try and select a suitable field, make sure there's nothing in it, no animals, no crops, and then execute a landing as you've just seen.
Come on, what's going on?
In that way, and then it's the retrieve crew's job to then go and find the landowner and get permission to go in and collect it. We have a very good relationship with the NFU, National Farmers Union, and Landowners Association.
Oh, it is a dude.
And generally most people are very pleased to see us. So back to 1783. The Montgolfier brothers have taken their balloon up to Paris to show it to Louis XIV. They're possibly going to have 2 convicted criminals who are going to be the pilots of this first balloon, but a young French nobleman called Jean de Rosier decided that this was not right, that it needed to be done by someone who was a little bit more daring. But he realized he needed someone to give him a hand. So if you can imagine back in 1783, if you want to get someone to do something, you have to send them a message. So the equivalent
Sandwich
of
time, guys.
would have been, and then get in your vehicle and go and chase after you. But it's great because once you've done that, you can come back and have your breakfast, a cup of coffee, and discuss what's happened in the flight.
I retrieved that quick, don't I?
1 year, babe. I had to come on Friday.
Yeah.
So if you want to get involved in ballooning, as I said, it's a very sociable activity, and it's also one of the cheapest ways of getting in the air. A balloon these days can cost you can buy a second-hand balloon for the price of a small family car.
I have
It's not
actually
hugely
been
expensive.
in a balloon.
Once you've got your balloon, you need to then learn how to fly it, and then you go through your training program with instructors.
We only got that one left.
And it's down, you need
Just
a
that
minimum
one
of
there.
16 hours of flying time. And if your instructor believes that you are now capable of flying the balloon on your own, you will be doing it then a check flight with an examiner, and you will do a solo flight. You have to solo, and that gives you your flying capability. Mastis, who has been collecting balloons for many, many years, he's brought one of his balloons over. If anyone saw yesterday morning, we had it flying. It's the Formula 1 race car.
Yeah. Yes.
But there are interesting places to go and fly. If you want to go and take a balloon flight, if you want to go to somewhere like Cappadocia in Turkey, where they'll have 100 balloons flying every day over the most amazing scenery and landscapes. You can fly in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, fly over the Temple aircraft. That's about a 105 balloon, maybe a little bigger. And the pilot obviously needs to keep the pressure inside, and there's not a lot of pressure in there. People always ask, if a bird lands on top and pecks it, will it pop? No, it won't. They're very, very big, but also there's only about 12 psi inside, so it doesn't actually affect it. But of course, that low pressure inside means that the pilot has to keep pouring the hot air in there to try and stop the effect of the wind pushing the side of the balloon in. It makes it into like a giant sail on a sailing ship, a spinnaker on a racing yacht, and it's that dragging it away in that direction. I think that balloon is tethered, it's not going to be flying away, the organ donation balloon. Looks very new and shiny. That's a Cameron balloon.
Not under the
And it gives you a
control.
good chance to actually see one of them
Come on,
close up.
let's get you up.
And
Let's
you can
get you
see
up.
how they are made.
Let's get you up.
So first you'll notice that from the top to the bottom of the balloon, those white lines going down, these are very strong nylon load tapes. We call them load tapes because they're taking all of the stress of the balloon. From the very top of the balloon, there is a ring in the top, and they bring that down to the flying wires that suspend it from the
Some
basket.
hot air in there, guys. Oh no. Oh no.
And then
oh,
in
no.
between
oh,
those
no.
load tapes, that's where the panels
Come
of
on,
fabric
guys.
are sewn in.
Come on, guys.
And they're all sewn in by hand by very highly qualified seamsters and seamstresses, because this is an aircraft, so it's aircraft certified.
No, another one.
And the panels then, you'll notice each different one is quite small. They have bonded seams that join them together, and they are joined to the load tapes, which does mean that if you get a hole in one, when it tears, it will only go as far as the nearest seam or the nearest load tape, so the balloon will not tear apart, which again makes them much stronger. So as the pilot heats the air inside, all of the hot air is rising to the top of the balloon, so that's why that's the largest part of the balloon. So you've got the most lifting capability at the top. And then all of the stress of that and all of the load that's being carried is brought down to the flying wires, which are actually then attached to the basket, being able to lift the load that you have at the bottom. You'll also notice the black section of the bottom of the balloon. This is the one that's made out of Nomex, the fireproof material. And then another joining piece of fabric, which again is made of Nomex, which is called a scoop. And what that does is it helps the wind be pushed up into the envelope and keep the pressure inside. And it also protects the burner flame, because as you're changing directions of wind, when you're actually flying, if you're moving up or down, and you will change from one direction of wind into another one, we call this a wind shear, and it will actually protect the burner and make sure that the burner flame is going into the balloon rather than blowing out through the side. You can clearly see the parachute valve in the top of the balloon. And that is the valve that the pilot will use to release the air from the top.
Oh, cool. Oh, looking forward to seeing that go up. Bells.
Brands out there, so each organisation is not a national brand, it's broken up into various hospitals, and where it's got not a hospital, it's actually been to Northern Ireland, it's been to other places as well, so we have to keep it quite simple in order to make sure it brings their requirement.
That's actually an interesting point, because it's something that we always used to say to clients, the fact that a balloon will say exactly the same message in any language. It makes no difference what the message is, it says exactly the same thing. And obviously I'm old school, so I used to design balloons by hand using a pencil and pens and all that kind of thing. But I believe you do it all now in 3D.
Well, we use paint sometimes. Yeah, so most of our clients have particularly special shapes done on 3D design CAD. Most of the artwork we've done for now is also designed in CAD, so we can also implement and use cutting machines to do the artwork. So, for example, the organisation and the heart would be used on a piece of bottom, and then we would sew them onto the
Yeah, because there's two different ways of doing that.
Still thinking about whether or not they're going to go or not, aren't they?
I think that's tethered. I don't think they are.
Nice writing itself. Off it goes. Pull the basket up. There we go. Right in the basket. Beautiful. Have they decided to no go?
No.
They're no go.
No.
Yeah, so. Uh-oh. I've decided not to. Windows picked up a bit to be fair. Yeah, they're sacking it off. Thank you, clouds.
Sit down, I'll go once. Come on, once. Once.
Did you fall down the toilet? Oh, wicked twist.
Sorry for being mean.